right, folks, we are back here on WLTH 1370M. I'm Scott Cannon.
I'm the Rev.
Yes,
Del Campbell.
yes, that is the mayor of Uvalde, Texas, laying the smackdown. Yes, he is. And I do not blame him one bit. Not one bit.
Well, I mean, it was looking like they were basically trussing up the head of the Uvalde school police force. Mm-hmm. You know, they were serving him up on a platter, and along with them, the Uvalde Police Department, basically saying that they sat hiding around the corner while butchery went on. And
yes, they did.
Wow.
Yes, they did. Oh man. Now the police had enough officers and firepower on the scene at the Uvalde school massacre to have stopped the gunman 3 minutes before he entered the building. 3 minutes after he entered the building, I'm sorry. And they would have found the door to the classroom where he was holed up unlocked if they had bothered to check it. Now I want you to hear what Stephen McCraw, who's actually the top cop in Texas. This is the Texas Department of Public Safety Director.
Yeah, he was the chef that was serving up the meal.
So this is what he had to say about Arredondo and the job he did at Uvalde.
Compelling evidence that the law enforcement response to the attack at Robb Elementary was an abject failure and antithetical to everything we've learned over the last 2 decades since the Columbine massacre. 3 minutes after the subject entered the West Building, there was a sufficient number of armed officers wearing body armor to isolate, distract, and neutralize the subject. The only thing stopping a hallway of dedicated officers from entering room 111 and 112 was the on-scene commander, who decided to place the lives of officers before the lives of children. The officers had weapons, the children had none. The officers had body armor, the children had none. The officers had training, the subject had none. 1 hour, 14 minutes and 8 seconds. That's how long the children waited and the teachers waited in rooms 111 to be rescued. And while they waited, the on-scene commander waited for a radio and rifles. Then he waited for shields. Then he waited for SWAT. Lastly, he waited for a key that was never needed. The post-Columbine doctrine is clear and compelling and unambiguous. Stop the killing, stop the dying. You can't do the former unless you can't do the latter unless you do the former.
That doesn't sound like a doctrine. That sounds
some
like
things were done well,
like
even very well. The teachers quickly implemented active shooter protocols prior to the subject gaining entry. In fact, one teacher was able to call 911 and report that before the subject entered the campus.
How did they
Law
do
enforcement
that?
officers were able to evacuate hundreds of children in a safe and orderly manner. The district attorney, Christina Mitchell, and her staff led tireless efforts to take care of the victims and their families in the aftermath. And Senator Gutierrez talked a little about victim identification and victim notification. That is always a priority after such a tragedy. Very difficult to do, and she did an outstanding job in trying to handle that situation, bringing all the different resources from local, state, and federal agencies at the time.
Man, so that is actually the Texas Department of Public Security Director Stephen McCraw lighting into Arredondo, who is the Uvalde School District Police Chief.
Yeah.
He said basically he made terrible decisions and said that the only thing stopping a hallway full of dedicated officers from
wearing body armor.
Wearing body armor from entering room 111 and room 1012 was the on-screen commander who decided to place the lives of officers before the lives of the children.
Yeah.
Woo!
Of course, then he went on and said that he was waiting for, he was waiting for guns, he was waiting for radios, he was waiting for shields.
Yeah.
But before that, he said that they all had body armor.
Exactly.
So I'm confused. Did they have body armor, or were they waiting for protective gear? Did they have the weapons, or were they waiting for the weapons?
Right.
Were they prepared, or were they trying to get prepared? Because it sounds like he said the same thing was going on at the same time. And either A, the officers on scene did not have any of these things, and the on-scene commander was trying to get them, or they did have these things, and they told the on-scene commander that they didn't.
Right.
Because apparently he was under the impression that they didn't have these. Now, then there's the other thing about the about the teachers calling 3 minutes before the guy even got in the building. I would have to ask, how is it that 3 minutes before the guy even got in the building, one of the teachers knew that what he was going to do?
Well, if he had an assault rifle, when he's heading towards the school,
Okay.
it ain't hard.
Well, yeah, if he had an assault rifle, and I guess he was brandishing it, and they saw him 3 minutes before he got into the building. Now, that's a small town.
Yeah, it is.
I haven't looked at a picture of the school, but I'm assuming it's a small town. It's probably a small campus.
Right.
So 3 minutes, in my mind, it looks like he wasn't on the school property yet. 3 minutes. But, let's say that there was a teacher who just happened to look in the right direction at the right moment and saw this guy walking towards the building and called 911. And 3 minutes before the guy even gets on campus, she sees him 3 minutes beforehand. She calls 911. 911 calls the Uvalde Police Department.
Mm-hmm.
Now remember, this guy at the school is the school police commander, not the city police department commander. Mm-hmm. And then on top of which, it was what? They weren't able to do anything until the Border Patrol Tactical Unit got there. Now, I don't recall the Border Patrol Tactical Unit saying that they just opened the door.
They could have.
According to this guy, they could have.
Yeah.
Instead, they broke the door down. So, I don't know. Maybe he knows something that apparently nobody who was there knew. Because, among the initial reports were, they sought for a key. They tried bursting the door down. They couldn't break the door down. They asked for a key eventually. And the initial reports were that a janitor got them the key.
The door's unlocked.
Well, that's what this guy is saying now.
Yeah.
But on the initial day reports, it was a janitor had to be found with a key to the room.
Yeah, see, and that's a big part of the problem. And if you notice, the Uvalde PD have not been participating in the probe. That's another reason people are mad. But Arredondo himself said this. He said that he didn't consider himself the person in charge and assumed someone else had taken control of the law enforcement response. So this man is has completely refused to take any responsibility for his bad decisions. He testified for about 5 hours Tuesday at a closed door hearing of a Texas House committee that is investigating the tragedy. Now, the Senate members who heard this decried him as incompetent and saying that his delay cost lives. He actually had gotten elected to something. I want to say the school board or the city council.
City council.
That's not going to happen now. That's not going to happen because now he's on administrative leave. So he's been placed amid the investigation into the botched police response to the massacre at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde. The district's top cop has been placed on leave. I don't think he's coming back, Rev.
Well, but the two entities have nothing. It's just like the city council here
I know,
and the school
No, but I'm
district.
saying I don't think he's coming back to public life. That's what I'm saying. I think his career as a public servant is over.
That might be.
There is no way he's going to be able to show his face in that town again.
Well, here's the thing. He is a lifelong resident of that town.
Right.
Many of the parents who were there, said they knew him growing up.
Yeah.
Now, right now, the only information we're getting clearly does not include his testimony.
Right.
It doesn't include any of the testimony of the officers who were there.
Mm-hmm.
We've heard from a lot of people who either weren't there at the time or who have information that was not available to anyone within the first 24 hours, because all this stuff is being said now, none of that was said in the first 24 to 48 hours.
Yeah.
By anyone who was there during the event. Again, I don't know if the Texas chief of public safety is right, wrong, accurate, or grandstanding. I have no way of knowing, because I haven't heard anything from the people that were there that day.
Well, we've heard from a lot of the parents. We've heard from a lot of them. Like, did you see the story about the mother who went to the school to get her kids, actually got detained because she tried to go in the school?
Yeah.
She actually broke free somehow. She got free out of the police car, ran into the school, and got her 2 children.
Yeah.
So, all major props to that woman. She was not standing there for Chief Arredondo's nonsense. She was not there for that. And this absolute heartbreaking story came out this week as well. A part of the shocking testimony from Stephen McCraw. One of the teachers, Eva Morales, her husband was one of the police officers. She called him, told him that she had been shot and that she was dying. And so her husband actually runs to the school to try to save his wife, is detained by his own fellow police officers and put in a police car while he's trying to save his wife, and his wife is bleeding to death. And now Colonel Stephen McCraw said that when he tried to move forward into the hallway, he was detained, and they took his gun away and escorted him off the scene. How do you think he feels right now? I mean, obviously.
Well, I'd like to hear what he saw.
Who, the police
Since
officer?
he's a police officer.
Ruben Ruiz?
Yeah, I'd love to hear what he saw. And what his thoughts were. Did he think that the police officers who were on scene, and if he's, matter of fact, wait a minute. Okay, if this were to happen at a school here in Gary, again, I don't know what the protocols are in Uvalde, but if this were something like this were to happen in a school city of Gary or any other city, as far as I know of, then what the school on-scene commander, what he said, that he thought it had been taken over by someone else, that probably is what would have happened. A mass shooting would have immediately been taken over initially by the city police, because they would be the ones doing the investigation. And then if it didn't go higher up the chain, either to state or even possibly federal activity, because there's probably some state and or federal laws that would come into play here. So the idea that the school police chief would be the person in charge of a mass shooting scenario, nah.
Well, see, here's the thing. I don't exactly know how is their police department structured, and here's the crazy thing. Texas, right? Texas is like the gun capital of America. You would think that if anybody had this type of scenario planned out, it would be Texas. You would think that they would say, look, we love guns here. Everybody's armed here. Yeah. We got to make sure that if somebody goes crazy at one of these schools and tries to shoot them up here, we have to be able to, put a stop to it. And, they're trying to put guns in the hands of the teachers now. Right. And so I figured they would have all this figured out. And Uvalde had actually gotten a bunch of money and a bunch of training for school shooting scenarios. So I'm trying to figure out exactly how did they screw this up so bad. This is a horrific situation. I mean, it's important to talk about these stories because the last few years we've been talking about funding the police and defunding the police and the role of policing in society, and we're going to talk about it a lot more coming up definitely in this next hour.